I hope we're all rejuvenated and not tired after lunch. Welcome to our third workshop track. And I'm Myra Stokel, I'm the Chief Development Officer at National. And I am really privileged to introduce Wendy Kershner to us today. I just met her myself and I hope you get to meet her and you'll get to know her by her presentation. Before I introduce her, I do want to remind you of our new way of getting your feedback. And that's with the QR code next to the workshop listing in your book. So at the end of the workshop, you just take a minute or two to fill that out. You found it to be really easy, right? I've heard people say it's better than the past method, so that's good. Wendy, first of all, I asked, welcome, we're so glad you're here. And I asked her a question and I started asking at breakfast this morning, which is, what is bringing you joy and energy these days? And guess what? It's a 3-year-old golden retriever. Yes, here. Us dog lovers are like, loving you already. But after the pandemic, it got you outside. It provided companionship when you had to work from home. What's the dog's name?
Her name is Daisy.
Daisy.
And she's actually 8.5 because I adopted her when she was 5.
Okay.
After.
Okay, all right, very fun. On our presentation track here now, Wendy had started her career in the corporate world and then moved to nonprofit world. And that's an interesting transition, which I'd love to hear all about that, but we won't do that today. But she is now serving nonprofits in Berks, Chester, Lancaster, and Montgomery counties, focusing on development support, grant writing, fundraising, as well as mentoring and interim executive director roles during transitions. That's a lot you're providing for those nonprofits. So thank you for serving those counties. And we just really appreciate it. We can't wait to hear what you have to say today. And we know that fundraising is technical, but it's also relational. So it looks like we're gonna have a mix of both of those.
Got it?
Oh, okay, good. All right. If at any point you can't hear me, just let me know. And I sometimes I talk a little fast, not just presenting, but in general. So if I talk too fast, ask me to repeat. I am really happy to be here. Why I'm doing what I'm doing right now is that there are so many wonderful nonprofits out there. And I am at a point in my career that I love being aligned with all the different missions and purposes. It really fuels me forward, and I'm happy that I can be here to help and share some different tidbits. My focus here was to be that you all have told the corporate office that you want to engage donors to become bigger donors or become more involved. And it is all relational. So I want to talk about all the different things that need to happen so that you keep everybody engaged. I will talk a little bit about grant writing. I will talk a little bit about boards and working with boards. So to start, I'm a little curious, how many, if we got a show of hands, how many people are board members here? Okay, so about half. And then are the rest of you staff, I'm assuming either directors or development? Okay, all right, cool. I am not as familiar with one of the terms that was shared with me, talking about your donors as mass donors and moving them to middle or major donors. I'm going to be talking about things about just increasing the size and type of donations, not putting them into categories necessarily. There are all different reasons that people are in different categories at different times of their lives. And anyway, we'll just talk about moving everybody forward. The first thing I just want to cover is that there are, hold on, practice my remote here. And I'm probably So. No fair, we can practice this.
Maybe,
It's on.
you know what, I'll just advance for you, just let them.
Okay.
I'm just-
It's been a challenge all day. Don't take it personally.
Oh, yeah. It's not just me.
Now it's not moving.
Oh, the joy. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, I'm gonna try to stay to the side so that I'm not blocking it. But one of the first things that I just want to point out, there is no magic pill. So I don't know how you all feel about the challenge of growing your donors and growing your fundraising efforts. But it isn't a magic pill. So I don't have a trick to give you. You need a solid foundation. You need to be consistent and slow and steady. And what you're trying to do is engage existing and future donors to understand what you're all about and internalize what you're all about. The grace in action stories that all of you have to share are so impressive, and they tug at the heartstrings. And if they can envision themselves as being part of what you're accomplishing, that's where you're trying to get them to be. Basically, the contents are right here. So general trends, best practices, tips and tools, monthly giving, and then the idea of building a monthly program. All right. So I start out with this about being really clear about your mission and your story. It seems silly, but I can tell you as a grant writer, when I work with my clients, I am sometimes hard pressed to find a mission. And it's crazy. It's crazy because that's what you're all about. So just be sure that you are constantly promoting your mission and your story clearly and everywhere. It needs to be consistent. Everything from your social media to the website, to your printed materials, to even what you say when you answer the phone at your office. It just all needs to be consistent. The last button here, or the last bullet here, is the Donate Now button. And I do encourage that. So whether you use a QR code, not everybody uses QR codes. I'm a Luddite, I don't use one. But just make sure at least that you have a link and other ways for people to connect with you. All right, this is my favorite word, task. So you don't want to thank and ask at the same time. You want to separate them. It's like a little bit like a backhanded compliment if you're thanking and also have your hand out for more money. So you want to separate it and make sure that your thanks are really heartfelt and genuine. And then the asks should be really specific and reflect either recent donations or things that your donors have expressed interest in, always tying them together. The next part is, again, some of this probably seems obvious, but it's amazing if you don't do it, how hard it is to do the stuff later. That's the really fun stuff and the important stuff. So building a foundations, like always, foundations to me are like a house. You need to have a stable, solid foundation to build up from. It takes time. So if you don't have staff, interns, whether they're high school or college interns, are really terrific. Dedicated volunteers can help do things like this, but you just need to have a system that works for you and your office, and then you have to follow it. 7 touches. So my background is in advertising, publishing, marketing, and branding. And 7 touches has always been the adage that it takes 7 times until somebody actually understands who you are and what you're all about. I think that you have certainly an edge on that because anyone who knows about you and what you do they're already with you. But just keep that in mind, 7 times. It's hard to do the bigger asks if you've only been in contact with them 2 or 3 times. You don't want to be a pest, but you just want to be in front of them and do it in different ways, whether it's social media, print, phone calling, outreaching, thank you letters, handwritten thank you letters, not just an email thank you. And then this one here at the end is something that, excuse me, you want to have a line item in your budget for stewardship and donor retention. It's not something that's going to happen by itself. And if you're really serious about fundraising, you need to be able to put some money towards it. It doesn't have to be a lot of money, and nonprofits don't have a lot of money. No one does, except the very, very big ones. But you don't want to have to be so cost conscious that you're at the expense of the donor engagement. So it is something that now is the time that most people are working on their budgets for next year, and it should be included in there. Even if you start with $100, at least you're starting with something for the new year, and then you can add to it over time. All right, this one, again, is basic, but I would have to venture a guess that if we're having a session about how to move your donors into a larger giving category, you might not be doing this, or you might not have all this information. It's super hard to ask people for money if you don't know what interests them, you don't know why they're doing what they're doing, and you don't understand where they're coming from. One of the things that I ran an art center for about 5 years. And one of the things that came up all the time was an art center has lots of different art and craft options. But if you're a ceramics person, you're not really interested in supporting painting or, printmaking or sculpture. So trying to figure out which art category, made their heart sing was key to knowing how to approach them and how to ask for money. If you need a new kiln in pottery, you want to know who your ceramic lovers are. So it is, if you don't have a genuine interest in each and every donor, you're not going to be able to move them in that line forward. And it could be anything. It could be rescue dogs. It could be, they could be marathon runners. I mean, just anything that starts that relationship and engagement. You want them to have a relationship with Bridge of Hope, but you also want them to have a relationship with you. People give to people, and they are will be supporting of your mission, but they also want to have a personal connection as well. All right, before we go to the next one, I should have said at the beginning, I'm great with questions on the fly. So if there's any questions about what we're going over, jump in, raise your hand, shout it out, so that we're not clumping too much up at the end. But the best practices okay with everybody? Well, you all know them, internalizing them. All right, well, we'll talk about retention. So retention is really, really critical. Statistics are pretty interesting. 43% loss in general, and then 29% loss in the first year. So that's been tracked for the last, some of my studies go back 40 years, some of them go back 20 years, but it's so much harder to bring somebody new in versus trying to keep them engaged. So down here, showing where all your donations come from, it's 40 years, consistently 77% from individual donors. It is not this big sponsorships. It's not the big foundations as a rule. It is individual donors. Lapsing out to past donor or reaching out to lapsed donors, people have given in the past and haven't for a while. That is usually a wonderful way for board members to get involved and for internships to help or interns to help out. That personal touch means so much. And as a board member, you certainly can ask why they're no longer engaged with you. You always want to be gathering information about your donors, even if it's past donors. But if you don't ask, not everybody will be comfortable to tell you. But I do think it's a way to say, thank you for, your past support. We'd like to, get you involved again. So we'll come back to this in a minute. Thank you. All right. Tips and tools. I've got them mixed in a little bit. And some trends are also mixed in here. So in terms of storytelling, this goes back to everybody being singing from the same sheet of music, that everybody needs to have the same information and be talking the same way about your organization. So stories over stats is an easy phrase to remember, but donors are loyal to causes over organizations. They want to hear about the people that you're helping. And what I have seen from Bridge of Hope newsletters that go out and other materials, I think there's a lot of good stories there and a lot of good information. That goes to this fourth bullet about creating a story vault. So for your individual groups, so that there's access for not only staff, but board members or volunteers or interns, so that everybody has those various mission moments and successes to share. The third bullet is important too, that if somebody, let's say, consistently gives $100, you need to be able to tell your donors what you spent that on. Where did it go? That goes back to the ceramics lover. So if they're really excited about helping single moms, talking about how that $100 helped a single mom in your community is again, drawing that line across. One of the things that in looking, I know he spoke yesterday, Kevin, so hopefully it was wonderful and everybody enjoyed his talk. And I did get to meet him briefly on a Zoom session. But in reading some of the reviews of his books, this struck me that it is, no matter how empathetic and compassionate people are or are predisposed to be, this is hard stuff. It's really hard stuff. And if you can show those compelling stories of hope, grace in action, you're taking all of those complex things that people don't want to talk about, and you're making them real, and you're showing that there's a solution to it. And I think that that's critical. And that again goes back to the story vault. You want to constantly be adding, not always paragraphs of a story, but even a little snippet of something. It can be utilized in a lot of interesting ways when you're dealing with donors. You can work it into a conversation. You can include it in a letter. You can give them a link to a full-blown story. But it is you've got all the tools to make all those challenges surmountable. All right, here is something that I want to touch on, the small scale engagement events. A lot of people do big events. They are very, very time consuming. They're super expensive, and your net is not always that great. It helps if you have a sponsor who's covering your costs and then people, paying to attend. But I would think about having a whole laundry list of just different smaller things that people can engage with. So it could be, activities. I- collecting, an example of something I thought about when I was putting this together. My mom started a nonprofit for women experiencing breast cancer. And one of the things that they came up with was a comfort bag. So when someone's first diagnosed, they get, and someone, if they don't call themselves or a family member or a friend calls, they will get a comfort bag to that woman or man, because breast cancer is both for male and female. But the comfort bags become an activity because they have to be put together. Donations are given, and it pulls people together to prepare those comfort bags. Sadly, they need a lot of them. But an activity like that is a way to chat and engage and get them to come into your space and connect. And while you're putting together a comfort bag, you're also learning about each other and having a shared focus. So I don't know if there are, I was thinking about it's not very common anymore, but there used to be a welcome wagon and where you got a kit from your new neighborhood. And I wondered if there were sort of, there was a neighborhood kit that could be put together. So I don't know your business the way you do, but there are being creative and inventive around how to pull people into activities that are productive and meaningful and will resonate with everyone that you're helping. Grant writing, I know that this, again, has been on other Zoom sessions and whatnot. I just want to repeat about the consistency of your message. Funders look at your website. So if you've done a grant and what you write in the grant doesn't match what you have on the website, it's a big red flag for the funder. So it is really important that everything stay consistent. Also, the idea of leveraging testimonials, not just from the families that you're serving, but perhaps some of the organizations that you work with. It's very powerful to have other people talk about you versus you talk about yourself. So even in a success story, a mission moment, you're still talking about a family that you've helped. Having somebody outside of Bridge of Hope talk about what Bridge of Hope does is easily 10 times more powerful than just you talking about yourself. All right, this is the other one that I know you've had some Zoom sessions on for board members. It has been my experience that there's never enough hours in the day when you work at a nonprofit, but you are trying to work smarter. And board members and committee members have contacts and can connect staff to each other and sort of pave the way. So the idea of doing introductions, doing joint meetings, that should be going on constantly. Part of it is that jump into the end one here, staff has to help support the board, tell them what they're looking for, asking them, stay on top of individual board members, share those mission moments, send out a link that says, hey, it's just been updated again, and you update maybe your mission moments and the story vault once a month. But there has to be clear communication between the two. Board members are volunteers, of course, so they have a lot on their plate. The staff always has a lot on their plate, but when they work together, it's magic. It really makes has such a powerful impact in the community and on your mission. Something here that ties a little bit into the grant writing. Funders, and I would say 90% of funders ask the question, do you have 100% board giving? So a lot of people like to donate at the end of the year. It doesn't really help you when you're starting, however your calendar year goes. For me, I always had a struggle with people wanting to do it at the end of the year, but then that counted for last year. So when you're in January and I was doing grants, I don't have 100%. So there's, an idea of here, the third bullet, a ceremonial $1 at your first board meeting so that you have 100%, and then you're not fibbing about anything in your grants. I don't know if in general your board giving is voluntary or mandatory. Voluntary. It just becomes very tricky to ask other people for money if your own team isn't supporting your organization. So maybe I'm already, you've heard this before, but it is problematic. It makes it very hard. And all that goes on with, a new onboarding process for your board members. But it is really, really important. So even that ceremonial dollar will get you a heads up or a foot up, leg up for the first of the year. Another thing that beyond monetary donations, which of course you need, for every group to figure out what they could use in terms of another kind of donation, not necessarily instead of a monetary donation, but a roll of stamps. And we all know how much stamps are going to cost, right? In the near future. I think I'm getting a lot less Christmas cards this year. I'm not sure I'm sending them out either. But again, like somebody who's a committee member or a volunteer, knowing that they can help with mailing things out, that if they're a paper person, that might be, and they like to get mail and they like sending mail, that might be a good fit for them. We talked about this one a little bit earlier, the board members being ideal to do personal thank you notes and calls, doing that retention outreach and that touching base. The idea of always keeping in touch with your donors. Again, even if they're at the lower level, you don't know where they could possibly go in 10 years. So you don't want to exclude anyone from that. How are we doing is a really powerful question to ask, and being open to asking them if they have any questions for you about what you do. Studies show that 39% more donors will engage through personal connections with board members. So if a board member is committed to an organization, that has a lot of weight when it's someone they know and they know how invested you are in the organization. Okay. I think we have. All right. Before we start talking about this, any other questions about anything I covered? All right. So this is, we're going to pass out that PowerPoint will go to everybody. Yep.
Could you talk about just some ideas? So I know as a network, we're not at 100% board giving. And if we make this a priority, what are some ways that executive directors and board chairs can help make this happen?
Has anybody had something that's worked in their office? None?
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Okay,
You raise your hand, yeah, you.
Yeah, we actually asked all of our board members to buy a table at our gala. And if they can't buy a table, they come up with another solution.
I think that's great.
Yeah, so we do have 100% giving, but that's one of the things that we do ask of them specifically.
Right. No, that's great. You?
And I would also add that you can make it clear to board members that people should give a gift that is meaningful for their needs. So
Yes.
if not everybody's able to do something like that, Veronica, even if it's $10, it's
Right.
still 100% participation. So I think that's really important.
Right. It is. It's super important.
Oh, go ahead, finish your thought. I was just gonna say, the monthly giving,
Mhm.
even set an amount, have it come out automatically. And it doesn't have to be a huge amount, but you're doing it, and that's typically what we do, and then we evaluate, okay. At the end of the year, whatever it may be, that, I think that helps the organization as well as the cash flow and everything else. It comes out, you don't think about it, it's gone. I think that's a good strategy to suggest.
We're going to go to that next, but I have a question. Do all of your boards do, all your board members do monthly giving? In,
I don't know the answer.
well, in your organization though, I don't know which one you're aligned with. Are we,
National.
you're national, so,
So we do, but
right,
I don't know the answer.
yeah.
Yeah, we do.
You do as well? Yeah, great. All right. The, sometimes, you can pull up statistics. Let's say if you do, you're doing grant writing and you have certain funders who support you, you could share with the board a list of all those funders and say, it's required, it's required, it's required, it's required. It's a little bit about you not talking, somebody else is talking. So, you know, if you have, you know, the McLean Foundation requires it, that you've got a list of 10 funders and say, we can't ask them to support us if we don't have the funding. So you're trying to leverage a requirement to hopefully have people do the right thing. And I like your point. Someone said just even $10, but anything anything counts. But that's why the $1 was one other example. So.
Just an observation, and I'm new to the national board as of April, but one thing that Bridge of Hope National does very well is the board is, we're given names, envelopes with stamps to send handwritten notes out, thanking folks for donating and encouraging. So that's a great practice that I was very impressed with. And
well, that makes it easier for you to do what they'd like you to do and what you want to do, right? So, which is all good. That's where we talked about the partnering. As much as staff can support the board and be clear about what you need them to do and give them the tools to do it. Could be a list of, hey, I'm looking, you know, for a contact XYZ funder or XYZ sponsor. But there should be that ongoing exchange and dialogue between staff and the board and committee members too, who are, for the most part, if they're not board members, they're board members to be or former board members. So, all right, so I'm going to switch and talk about the monthly recurring giving idea. So with this, it is one of the most effective techniques. I thought it was fascinating that studies showed that during the pandemic, monthly giving, because it is automated, it was what was keeping a lot of nonprofits afloat when they had to shut down or limit offerings. It is a steady, reliable source of income. It also is something that then you can plan to. Something that I have been involved with is here that this related trend of a multi-year gift. So someone who maybe gives $10, if you could get them to commit to do $50 or $100 for 5 years, then that's something that the organization can count on. It could be 500, it could be 1,000, it could be 10,000, whatever someone might be willing to do. But the dialogue that happens with the donor when you put something like that in place is that it allows the organization to plan and grow instead of just always waiting to see what money does or does not come in. It's guaranteed money. So the monthly giving is guaranteed. That comes in from a lot of different sources, but something like this program usually needs a special name and hopefully has larger dollar amounts attached to it. And then in the same way, we're going to talk about the monthly giving program. With something like this, it probably should have a name. There should be at least an annual event to thank them and give them an update on the organization. But they're committing to your future and your future health and your future successes. You need to then respond accordingly and keep them informed and keep them in the loop. One group helps. It's Berks Women in Crisis that is now called Safe Berks. Their unit is called Peace Trust and to promote peace. And it was started probably about 20 years ago. And it's growing and growing and growing. And it's impressive how much has been accomplished with that. But you start out slow. You don't know how many people might be interested, but that is one tool. And then the monthly giving is another tool. Over here, the numbers there. So you end up having on average 42% more donations. 52% of millennials will like this. They're used to just putting stuff on their card, and no offense to any millennials in the room. But they are more likely to give this way. The increase, that 43% to 83%, 80% retention in the first year, 95% retention after 5 years. That's impressive. It really does work. Even though it takes effort to build. So, part of my job is to talk about things that you could do. I'm very aware that you all have small staffs and you need bodies, but it's exciting to have a new program to launch. All right. Monthly or recurring gifts, whatever you want to refer to them as. Some of the essentials are there has to be a mindset in the organization that supports this. It can't just be, oh, it's a nice idea, but no one's behind it. Leadership has to be behind it. So that means the full board, and it means the executive director and the staff. Everybody needs to be thinking this way. It has to be actively promoted, right? I mean, people need to know you're doing this if you've never done it this way before. The boards themselves, all the board members embracing it, that walk the talk, and doing things that are specific to these monthly donors so that you're engaging them in a special way. All right, here are some statistics. I won't read through all of these. I just want to point out one bullet point. This one right here, 1, 2, 3, 4. People who can't afford to give big amounts, this is built for them. They can afford to perhaps do $10 a month, but even doing 120 upfront at one time for the year, they can't do that. So it is that idea of fitting into people's budgets, and everyone has different budgets and different restrictions. It's something that will work for whether it's a big gift or a small gift. That's monthly will help. Someone who does the monthly giving will be giving 3 times longer than an average donor. So an average one-time donor. Any questions about some of the behind the scenes stuff of what goes on with it?
Yeah, besides the fact that we talked to them about, gee, if you give $100 a month, it's gonna go to this, that, and the other. But what can we say to them, that they would get from us, meaning the Bridge of Hope Board and the Bridge of Hope National and whatever? I know we do newsletter, that kind of thing, but are any other suggestions? I know we have maybe a gala once a year to thank them, but
we're going to get to that. Part of it is making it specific for the monthly donor. So this is not your question, but it's on the other side of it. What you don't want to do is have your monthly donors get your general solicitations, because they're already giving you money every month. And so that's offensive, or can be offensive, right? To be asked for even more money and not have that monthly giving acknowledged. So for sure, you want to pull out the monthly donors from your regular solicitation mailings or emails, an annual appeal, however you all do that. And everybody does it differently. I think there are lots of good ways to do it. If you pull them out and then treat them differently. So let's go ahead and go to the next page. So I have a way to build a strong program. So one of them is to create a separate web page. One of them could be you do a regular newsletter, but maybe there's an extra page or an extra story that you give to the monthly donors that the regular donors aren't getting or the prospects aren't getting. So you're constantly trying to customize it. But once they're set up, it's so critical that you keep in touch with them. So it seems like, okay, it gets programmed in, it's monthly, and you're getting money, but you can't walk away from them. You need to keep reaching out to them, ideally monthly. So something like, talk about this, the naming the program, an automatic thank you note that goes out within 48 hours, either by a live person or automated in your system. Having goals for this and then setting up a plan that you're looking for, again, that 25 by 25 is just an example. It could be any amount, that you feel comfortable with, but that idea of getting 25 donors to pledge for $25 a month, you want to launch what your idea is. You want to say, this is your goal and how can people help and support that? So back to what they're getting, you're just giving them perhaps more than the regular donor gets, right? You have a lot of things on your website, but maybe you, as I said, have extra testimonials or extra mission moments, or let's say there's a video that you've done. How about your outtakes from the video, that are sort of funny or silly or heartwarming? You could have like the bee, the bee video, and then that's posted for the monthly donors to have access to. It just gives them a way to let them, it's a way that you can let them know how much you appreciate them on a monthly basis, and they stay engaged. And it should be quick and easy. And, maybe it's every month, hey, we have news stories and new fun things for you to check out on the website. And the link goes in on the email and off it goes. So.
Something that we found is if you can do something a little gimmicky with it, people get excited. So like we're in Denver, and so we have a Mile High Donor Club, and it's $52.80 a month. And we've had a lot of people sign up for that, and it's such a small amount that a lot of them years later are like, where's this $52.80 going? And they just let it continue to go, but that's been kind of fun for us, as just an ongoing donor base that we're getting our monthly donations.
No, I think that's great. I think making it fun for the staff, fun for your donors. I think other people wanting to join that. Do you do an annual get together of any kind with them?
We have two. So we do a golf tournament and a gala, and we always promote it then. So sometimes we'll go between, if everybody in this room gives $50 or $75, then it will pay for support for a mom for an entire year, or a family for an entire year. Or sometimes we promote the 50 to 50 club.
Just to clarify, your golf event and your gala are for all your donors or just the Mile High?
All of our donors, but we do a happy hour for Hope for our more consistent donors.
Okay.
And that's a really small event,
So right there, you've got one broad level, you've got that special happy hour. Doing something else that's just for those monthly donors should be added in, so that you're really making it like it's a club that everybody wants to be part of.
Yep.
The 5280, hopefully you have other levels.
We do, we're actually getting ready to roll out a donor.
Okay, cool.
So,
No,
yeah.
that's great. Yeah. Because 5280 is great. And then I'd like to add zeros to it. So.
Yeah, go to Vail.
Right.
And not to get too granular, I love the idea about the separate outreaches. And I guess my question is, let's just say there's a separate page for monthly donors. Is that, for lack of a better term, is that password protected, something exclusive to them, or within the other donor page or something, the outreach statement, that can get visibility to that, to buy in?
I would do the second. I would not,
Exclude.
I wouldn't exclude, but I wouldn't promote it, because you want your monthly donors to be the ones who are really benefiting from that. But if other people can't see what's going on, they don't know what they're missing.
Give
So it's a
give them the opportunity to see
Yes,
that.
yes.
Give this
Well,
open.
And it could be something on a regular donor page that says, hey, learn more about our monthly giving program. And then it clicks to not the monthly giver page yet, but sort of a jump page that then talks about it and then says, if you want to take a peek at, the monthly giver page, then it can link them there. But you want to stop them, woo them, or convince them, or what, or sway them before you let them get in.
It's a segue.
Yep, yeah, exactly. So, this thing here, a friend of mine uses that term, rolling out the red carpet. But you really want them to feel special because as you are building that community, you're trying to get more and more people to come on board and be part of it. I think we have one more page. Yes. Okay. Every time I get near it, it jumbles and I can't read it. It might be me. So this sort of ties in a little bit, or some of the points here tying a little bit to your question. So even if you're doing an annual appeal, you should include mention about the monthly giving program, right? So that you're always cross-promoting. The idea of still finding out why your donors are doing what they're doing and what resonates for them, whether they're a monthly giver or a one-time giver, it doesn't matter. It's still the same behavior. You still need to know where they're coming from, what's motivating them, and then what that potential is. Because you also don't want to be hounding people who just don't have the resources to do more. That's not a good use of your time. It's not a good use of their time. It makes everybody feel bad if you want to do more and you can't do more. Yeah. All right. I think so that's what we've covered today. So I think I'm not in fear of going over in time, but I'm hoping for more questions or more dialogues or sharing what you guys are doing within the different groups. I guess I'm curious about what was new today that you didn't already know.
About all of it. 2 months. I have to read that.
Yeah, the PowerPoint will go out to everybody.
Awesome.
So I didn't bring, I'm trying not to use plastic water bottles and I'm trying not to print extra paper and kill trees. So I did not bring you copies, but it will be available.
Early on, you mentioned a line item in your budget, and what are some of the things you would suggest doing for your donors with that little amount of money that you're?
So since we were just talking about the monthly program, so a line item in the budget, you're going to need to expand your website. It's not complicated to add more pages to an existing website, but some of that coding and the linking and stuff. So that would be something. The event that we talked about that you're going to do. The monthly giving event. It could be as simple as a coffee, like a breakfast, right? And it's an hour before people go to work or at the start of their workday or something, so that it's lower cost. It's not dinner and there's not cocktails, but you're having them come in, something light, and then you're giving them an update, sort of a state of the union, that maybe they haven't heard before. And hopefully some of the monthly givers will know each other, right? And that fuels as well. It could be a part-time role or a temporary role where you bring someone on to help improve your database, right? Whatever system you use, even if it's just an Excel spreadsheet, there are notes and you need notes to know who these people are. It's also something that is really critical in terms of someone being out sick, someone leaving. If somebody has a lot of stuff in their head or their own personal note-taking system and it's not in the database, then everybody loses because then you have to recreate it again and keep adding to it. And that's pretty common in nonprofits. So it is something that you've got to watch out for. I don't know. What were you thinking you'd do the budget for? Okay. The list could be endless, but even if it's $100, I would spend that $100 on launching a monthly giving program, right? If that's all the organization can afford to pull out, at least to be announcing it and saying that this is what you're doing. And maybe you can get a grant to create, an improvement to the website. Maybe you have an IT vendor in the area who would be happy to donate their services to do something like that. I think it all comes down to being creative. We talked about creatively encouraging board members to do 100% giving, but in every aspect of what nonprofits do, you've got to, you're doing bodily contortions with very tight funds. Anything else?
Are there many people here that go to corporations to ask them to be sponsors? And I'm not talking just, how we regularly do it, but I mean, that actually are true sponsors, or maybe have them on a monthly basis, I don't know, it just seems that a lot of corporations out there have funds to give, and maybe we're not asking. And I just was wondering if anybody else is approaching companies or corporations.
Working on it, my CEO.
And I was just talking to Mike about that, and there's a very exciting development, the DAS, donor advised funds, which we'll hear about tomorrow, but those are being used by businesses now too, to give. They set them up for charitable giving, so that's kind of a whole new thing. But we do have businesses and corporations for sure. I'm trying to remember what our percentage is. Does my team remember what from this last year? What was our percentage?
It's small, it's like 3%.
It is 3%. I thought it was more than what you
No.
had mentioned, like 4%.
It's still individuals who are giving dollars.
Yeah, definitely individuals, but I thought.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering because I think we could probably do more than a 3%. That's just my opinion, but I come from corporate America and work a lot with corporations, so. And they sometimes designate specific people to give money to nonprofits.
I'm having worked in the corporate world. I agree that there's a lot of sponsorship money out there. Some of it comes with strings. So you just need to be aware of that. Some donations require a lot of press publicity for their generosity. So again, you just have to be prepared to be able to do that. And again, with limited staff, where is that money? I think aligning a corporate sponsor with a particular event, like your gala or a golf event is a great thing. And it's good visibility for the corporation, which is what they are looking to do good and support their community, but they are looking for, visibility as well.
Yes.
Well, and that's where I learned about it a couple hours ago, but DAF, I mean, the dynamic within my company is most of there's a lot of philanthropic endeavors, but it's funded by the business. So this, and you'll learn more about it tomorrow, I'm gonna look into it, but, this offers benefits for employees to designate, it's almost like a monthly giving almost.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Well, we'll hear more.
Yeah, but I don't wanna get ahead of it, but
Yeah,
this
but
is
it's
the
an
bridge,
option
that, at
that's-
least for now, that I can make there. And then, those that are passionate about what we do as Bridge of Hope can contribute. And there's advantages to them, so. I appreciate learning about that.
Oh, yeah, me too.
You were gonna say.
Yeah, I was just going to respond that I think some of the, what we experience in a corporate world can connect to our faith-basedness, that for some corporations, that's going to be a hindrance for their policies internally. But I think a sweet spot for us, as I look at many affiliates, has been small businesses
Yes.
and small business owners often part of the individual giving, even though they're giving in the name of their business, they're giving out of their personal pockets. And so it's in the individual giving category, but as a corporate sponsor, they want it listed as their business. So it's just being flexible to how the donor wants to give, and how they want to be recognized.
Because I was
And
thinking of two,
another, go ahead.
I was thinking of two that we have right now in that category, plus we do have a company, a business that's giving monthly recurring,
Yeah.
which I think, we just have one right now, right?
No,
Yeah.
multiple.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
but those come through their names, in other words, those are individuals, right? Those are counted as individuals, is what Edith was saying. So two of them are as individuals, and then we have another one, but anyway, they can even give recurring. Which is, you might not even think of that as a possibility, but a business might choose to do that.
Yeah.
You know,
Because again, the business can plan for it for the year, whatever the amount is times 12, even though they're giving it
yeah,
right each month. I want to point out something, since we're talking about companies and also foundations that would support Bridge of Hope's mission. It would be worthwhile, so maybe maybe this is already done from a corporate standpoint, but in any given area, you can easily go to the library and do some research. You can also do it just Googling, but finding out what corporations and what foundations support organizations like yours, so that you're, again, working smarter, that you're working off of not the list of thousands, but, you know, a list of 100. It just, sometimes it's better to focus a little, not the shotgun, but the rifle, that you want to go right in and target people that will be receptive and helpful to you. And even if they can't help you at that moment, they maybe can budget it for the following year. So again, all those conversations, they're never lost. You're still building relationships.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think outside the box because we're in a community that's not really big, or it's not like we're in Fairfax, Virginia or something. And there's a lot of competition, organizations like ours, that want money donated, or want sponsors, so, I'm just trying to think a little outside the box.
And if I could add to that, banks are required to give back to their community based on their profits. So banks are a really good place to go because they have to give, they just have to discern where.
Thank you,
Mhm.
thank you.
Some banks, not to, that is absolutely true. I think banks are great sources. Banks have money. I have had some surprise that sometimes now, more recently in the last couple of years since the pandemic, banks are supporting people that are their customers.
Right, which is why you
So-
want to build those relationships.
Correct. Yes. So either individual or the organization.
We have some of the banks we work with create specific plans that our moms can use. That
Nice.
make it really convenient for them, or they'll come in and teach them what it looks like to have a checking account. And then that counts as one of those
Right.
connections. So-
Perfect. Do you want to say something?
Yes, I was gonna say that, in some cases, I'm not certain as to whether or not it works like this for corporations. I have been told, depending on the corporation, that this may be applicable to them as well. But some banks and or corporations, are usually more, they're usually more, prone to give towards the beginning of the year. It's like there's this certain window of time within a year that you're most probable to receive funds, as opposed to if you wait or delay and try to do it like between March and June, when most funds are usually already distributed
Yeah,
to those who have beat the band on inquiring about or requesting the fund.
I have experienced that, not always so much the first in, but you want to think about it in the first half of the year, because they will be awarding money. There is oversight in terms of spreading it around. Sometimes they have leftover money at the end of the year that they need to spend. So you have a little bit, again, you don't want to wait too long, and you at least want to get on people's radar so that even if they can't do it then, there might be a pot of money available later. And they're like, we really like that Bridge of Hope. And then you would get some funds that way. So it is, but all corporations are different.
Right.
Some of them do it monthly. Some of them have the pot, like you said, that's upfront and all of a sudden it disappears. Okay, so again, you have to keep all of that stuff in mind because you don't know which you're dealing with, and they probably won't tell you that unless you have a relationship with someone who says, well, we plan this, in January and February, or, oh, we plan it when we're doing the budget and we've already started allocating. So sometimes that's being part of the conversation in the fall to get the money in the following year. So I had one question for the group. I've covered what I thought was good for you to know. I'm curious if there's something I didn't touch on that you'd like to know about, either from me or each other.
You mentioned these small scale engagement events, and I'm curious, if you could give some examples of those in your experience, or if any affiliates, sort of throw in these small scale engagement.
You go ahead.
No, Edith and I talked about having an event at home, invited people we know, 8, 10.
Yep.
Just sort house, and having a small event there, people that we think might be folks that would consider signing up for monthly giving, so that's an example, and again, this is a best practice that Bridge of Hope has set up. I love it. So.
Well, and also people respond differently. Some people love to go to a big gala and, maybe get all the raffle tickets or, bid on an auction item. And other people, like, that's not their thing. They just want to talk in a small group and get to know people and get information. I talked about that idea of the comfort bag. We talked about the breakfast, doing an inexpensive get together. You could do, a monthly, not necessarily open house, but a monthly drop-in, and have it be a drop-in for prospects, people who maybe are interested in neighboring or people who are interested in supporting your mission. And maybe you have somebody from a different staff role or, a different area, a partner group, that maybe somebody talks for 5 or 10 minutes. So that most of it is spent, them talking to people, getting information directly, and sort of have you're sharing one of the mission moments or some kind of a wow, hey, look how many blah, blah, blah we distributed in the past, 2 months or something. I think that there is a trend away from big events. They are just so labor intensive. Yours, I hope, are very successful, but a golf outing and a gala are the two that are being pushed away. And a lot of people that I've talked to are embracing that. People are happy that they don't have to go to all of these very, very good galas for very, very good causes. How many golf outings, will companies pay for anymore? How many galas? So I think it's good if you have them and they're working, great, but you also want to add things in. I used the quote for Kevin's, or a review of Kevin's book, even having a get together to talk about that book and having some, it's not quite a book club, but that could be one topic, because I think it is just even the premise is fascinating, right? It's this, people want to be compassionate and help others, and then things hold them back. So it could be a series that you could do every other month for 6 months. And that drop in, then that becomes a really easy peasy activity. But if you engage with 6 to 12 people, that could be new donors right there for you. Very little invested time, yes, but money.
One of the things that we've been doing is peer-to-peer, which is what you guys were talking about. We call it a peer-to-peer event, and then one of our donors will set it up, but then we actually support them by putting them on our application where we collect money for events. And so they have their own, so everybody who comes can actually just put a credit card on there and they don't even have to worry about gathering the money and sending it over. That's great. So those are always.
Just making it easier. Yeah. You were gonna say something?
Yeah, what I'm gonna try to start doing, cause I've done it for my business, is we have like a tea shop, lunch shop, et cetera, in town. We have a lot of small businesses that are restaurants. And most of the time, they're not gonna charge you to come in and use their place, but this is a tea and wine shop. And they have tables and chairs and everything, and I think if you put out, a message, gee, we're gathering, we're getting together, maybe have a speaker. That would be there, could come and talk about, it could be a community thing, someone from the chamber, whatever, but in order to, be a draw. And say, it's sponsored by Bridge of Hope, we'd love for you to come and have, a cup of tea and some munchies, and because I know that food works. People love to come and gather around food. We all, look at us here, right? Yeah, but things like that, even if you get, 5, 6 people at a time, and you can, get out the message. And then have a nice time in the meantime, I think can be a drawing for us.
I would agree with that, and I'd go another level to it. You're engaging the community, you're supporting a local business, you're getting, you're giving exposure to that business. They're learning more about you while you're pulling other people in the community in as well.
True.
So those kind of things where they're levels, where it's win, 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 win.
Yeah.
That's the criteria for a good event. Yeah.
I specifically want to know if we're starting a startup in Berks County, if there's any specific fundraising that you would recommend from your viewpoint for startups.
Are there other startups or just that one?
That's the one I'm involved in.
I know. Because I was thinking you and I can chat a little bit since I'm from Berks County. Are there any other startups, or that's just the one that's working? Okay, all right. We'll go ahead and we'll come
I was
back.
just gonna say, I started with Bridge of Hope National 5 years ago this month. My first day was actually on. But I knew some about homelessness, but we did a homeless simulation, and that was so impactful to me, and I learned so much that day. And I think finding ways to get key people from the community, be it from a couple churches you want to engage, or companies or whatever, if you can get one person out even to kind of see the impact of that can really have an effect, even if it wasn't the whole thing, because that took maybe like an hour, something like that. If that was too long, even doing a mini version, even like the neighborhood training that I've been on, we use a card because everybody uses the same thing, a card system, taking steps forward and back, and just kind of planting the seed where it's gonna be more impactful than just being on the phone or trying to just talk. You're actually giving them something to visualize or to put themselves in the shoots, and I really think that's a great way to invite people to that if you did that like twice a year or something like that.
I actually think that that's a great idea because it makes it real.
Yes.
And I would think not just once or twice a year. That could be part of that monthly or every other month, small activity,
Sure.
right?
Mhm.
I also, you were talking about the monthly giving webpage. Any affiliate that wants a monthly giving webpage can give me a call, because we have one on the national site. You can take a look at it. If it's something that's interesting to you and you want some help setting it up, just give me a holler.
How do we get in touch with you? I'm sorry. Hey, I'm game for anything.
We'll grab me after.
I love the
Okay.
suggestion about the book. I have not read Kevin's book, but a dear friend and mentor in business to me. Some of the best advice I ever received was, if you read a good book, don't tell somebody about it, send it to them. Give it to them.
Actually, yes.
And if we send you a book or give you a book, which we receive, read it. So that's gonna be a good preparation, and when we schedule that, I'm gonna send this out, say, hey, do me a favor, it doesn't look like a hard read, read this, and we're gonna talk.
I think that's an excellent idea. And I am a huge reader myself. Not everybody is, right? So that part of knowing your donors, have like 5 things. Send a book to one person, send a little quote to another person, send a link to an interview, send the review like I found. Do it in different ways because the book is very powerful, but always know who your audience is.
Somebody used the term, meet them where they are.
And that's spot on.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, of course you can.
So, many of us, at Bridge of Hope, we encourage people to use, a Leader of Hope Giving Society. So where you are creating a society where your donors who are giving 1,000 or more a year are part of a Leader of Hope Society. And those, we encourage you to have an annual event. So I'm also now hearing you say, so some of those monthly donors are also Leaders of Hope. After you cross the $84 mark,
Right.
but those who aren't at 84 a month, are you? So if we're already doing a Leader of Hope event, should we be including our monthly donors? Or is that a special touch for, even if it means some people are part of 2 different groups?
So my answer is yes.
So which part?
Exactly. I would do both,
Okay.
right? I would do something special for your monthly donors. And those monthly donors that qualify for that level, they should be included in that next level. They'll probably be thrilled to know that they qualify, but they probably wouldn't qualify until they've done a year of, or until they hit that mark, right? Somebody else who's close, that's a perfect opening to say, just want to let you know that we have blah, 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 group that we meet once a year. And we'd love to have you consider increasing your monthly donation by $15 so that you would be part of this group. It's not an either or. To me, more would be better. And unless somebody opts out.
Thank you so much. That has been a lot of great information. Yeah, and I think I'm hearing it, this monthly donor, it really is a special group. A recurring donor is a special person, and we need to think even more about that. Like, how can we make them know that they are? So, yeah, thank you. This has been wonderful.